want to thank you for being here today. I know it's not always easy to show up at the end of a long holiday weekend, so thank you for that. Thank you also for about half the people in this room who showed up for Brooklawn Thanksgiving on Tuesday. Your help was very much appreciated. The kids had a great time by all accounts. I had a great time serving with you all, and you all said that you had a great time serving too. So that is an annual tradition. If you want to jump in on that, we would love to have you next time. And even if you didn't, if you weren't there, thank you for supporting that, encouraging that, and praying for that. We appreciate you too. I want to start off today by talking about July 24th, 2024. And that's a date that I will always remember, and it's a night that replays often in my mind. Thankfully, it's not because of something bad that happened. That night doesn't stand out in my mind for anything negative or traumatic. That night replays in my mind because it was one of the best nights that Denise and I have ever spent hanging out with friends. It was one of the best examples of biblical hospitality that we have ever experienced. I reflected so much on that night afterwards that I took 3 pages of notes the next day in my journal. And let me tell you about what was so fantastic about this night. We had the privilege of hanging out in the home of Ed Mangum Sr. and his wife, Sharon. And there was every excuse in the world at the time not to do so. But I felt like we needed to get together with them because they, since we've known them for about the last 8 or 9 years or so, they have been encouraging, and they pray for us regularly, they pray with us regularly, and they are amazing people. And it had been a while since we've seen them at that point in time in July of 2024. So I talked to Denise about it and contacted her and said, we would love to hang out with you all. We'll come to Lexington to do so. We'll bring you dinner if that would make it easier. And she said, absolutely, yes, come to us, but don't think about bringing food. I'm cooking for you. So we get to their house, and it's just, when we walk in, it's perfect. It's perfectly clean. It smells great, like she's been cooking. They had some light music playing in the background. The whole environment was welcoming. The whole environment just screamed Christian hospitality. And she said, come on in, sit down at the table. We sit down at this table. She has china set out for us to eat on. And she had really nice china that they got when they were serving as missionaries in Vietnam. And she prepared a Vietnamese meal for us. It was delicious. And we had great conversation. Throughout this conversation, she was not complaining. She is not a complainer. But as matter of factly, she just said, I had a difficult time getting this ready today. I had a difficult time getting out of bed. My back wouldn't work right. My legs wouldn't work right. And, of course, we were concerned. But she spent every bit of time and energy she had that day preparing for us, preparing a great meal, preparing a great time, figuratively rolling out the red carpet for us. And it was awesome. And they took us around their home and showed us different things that they had gotten from these different places they had served as missionaries. That was awesome. They showed us this little part of their dining room where they had set up to where they pray together every single morning. They told us about some DIY projects they had, some things that they had fixed up and reclaimed. It was awesome. It was a night that I didn't want to end. It ended in great conversation. And it was just an overall fantastic experience. Our study today from the books of John takes us to 3 John. And you'll quickly realize why I started with that night. But the books of John are letters that John wrote to different churches in the region where he and others were working to spread the gospel and expand the kingdom of God. And 3 John happens to be the shortest book in the entire Bible, but it contains, in my opinion, one of the most important lessons for us. And that lesson is that we are to practice, and practice well, biblical hospitality. 3 John, starting with the first verse, says, "This letter is from John, the elder. I am writing to Gaius, my dear friend, whom I love in the truth." So we see right here in this first verse that the same way John addressed himself in 2 John, he addresses himself also in 3 John as the elder. And just as the same as in 2 John, 3 John is writing to a house church that is in the network of house churches that John helped to lead. And you'll recall that 2 John is written to a church or a church leader who John addressed as the chosen lady. And this time in 3 John, he is writing to a church that was led by a man named Gaius, who John calls his dear friend. Picking back up with verse 2, "Dear friend, I hope all is well with you, and that you are as healthy in body as you are strong in spirit. Some of the traveling teachers recently returned and made me very happy by telling me about your faithfulness and that you are living according to the truth. I could have no greater joy than to hear that my children are following the truth." Notice John continuing the theme of 2 John that we studied last week, the theme of the truth. People have reported back to John that this church is living in the truth, meaning that they believe that Jesus was and is who he says he is, the Son of God, who came here as a man to set up the kingdom of God here on earth. And John notes that they live in the truth. They live this truth. They don't just believe it. They don't just teach it. They live the truth. Their lives reflect the truth that they believe in. And as we've studied in 1 John and as we've studied in 2 John, we know that if they are living in the truth of Jesus, then this church is a church who walked in the light and not the darkness. They walked in the light of God's love and not sinful behaviors. This is the church that loves one another. This is a church that shows great discernment when it comes to prophets. Prophets being either people they should let teach in their church or somebody who they discern as a false prophet who they shouldn't be influenced by their teaching. And John says that nothing brings him greater joy than to see his children, fellow church members, fellow Jesus followers, living in the truth. This almost echoes what John wrote in 2 John 1:4 when he said he was happy to meet some of his fellow Jesus followers and find that they were living in the truth. While he hasn't met most of the people that he's writing to in 3 John, he did send some traveling missionaries their way, and he received a good report back about them when those missionaries returned to him. Remember that Jesus' disciples, including John, were taught to do ministry and their mission work in this way, the sending out way. Matthew chapter 10, which we discussed a little bit last week again, Jesus sends out his disciples, just like John later sent out these missionaries to this church. And John calls them these traveling teachers. And the rules John would have given these traveling teachers would have been the same rules that Jesus gave to him and the other disciples that was recounted in Matthew 10. Don't rely on money or any supplies from non-believers, people who were outside of the church. Another rule was receive hospitality. Receive your food, supplies, shelter, anything you need, only from people who believe in the truth like you do. Have faith that this will happen. So much faith that, in fact, before you leave, you don't even need to carry your supplies or carry any money with you. Fellow Jesus followers will take care of your needs, and you need to have faith that that's going to happen. 3 John, starting back with verse 5, says, "Dear friend." And remember when he says dear friend, he's talking to Gaius and Gaius' church. You are being faithful to God when you care for the traveling teachers who pass through, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church here of your loving friendship. Please continue providing for such teachers in a manner that pleases God, for they are traveling for the Lord, and they accept nothing from people who are not believers. So we ourselves should support them so that we can be their partners as they teach the truth. I hope you understand that reading through this, that you understand this message and this writing is deeply personal for John. He's encouraging the early church, the church that he's trying to build and reinforce, to treat others either the way that he was treated in his missionary travels or the way that he wanted to be treated when he was traveling and teaching. This is a deeply personal message. John encourages the early church and us to practice Christian hospitality, the hospitality that Jesus set for him and the other disciples as an expectation. Let's highlight a few of the things that John encourages Gaius' church with. First thing we see, when we practice Christian hospitality, we are being faithful to God. It says that in verse 5. Christian hospitality isn't always the easy thing to do. It isn't always the comfortable thing to do. In fact, it takes commitment. It takes committing time, effort, sometimes money. It takes committing sometimes things that are way beyond our imagination or control when we get started. It requires stepping outside of our comfort zones. Practicing Christian hospitality requires faithfulness, and in matters that require faith, God will use those to help stretch us and help us grow and help us learn to be completely faithful and reliant on Him. Second thing that we learn in these verses is when we practice Christian hospitality, we are pleasing God. It says that in verse 6. John was told of their church's loving friendship toward the traveling teachers, and he encourages them to keep pleasing God in this way. As parents, they're listening to me right now, you know how bad it hurts when you see one of your kids treating another one of your kids badly or unfairly. That hurts your heart. Think of how the opposite is true of that, and the positive spin on it. When one of your kids treats your other kids nicely or lovingly, it warms your heart. You love to see that. We love to see that. We see our lessons that we're teaching them as parents and our encouragements that they're giving them being put into practice, and that encourages us. And the same can be said of God. When He sees His children taking care of each other, this is pleasing and encouraging to Him, and that's the point that John is making here. This fact alone should prompt us into the steady practice of Christian hospitality. The third thing that we see is when we practice Christian hospitality, we become partners in the mission. John talks about that in verse 8. Our family recently packed 2 shoeboxes full of supplies to be sent to kids who are in need through the organization Operation Christmas Child. We have tracked that package electronically. We're looking forward to seeing where and who it ends up with, who it's going to help. I'm telling you that because I'm using that as an example. We're now invested. We get to track that package, and we are partners in the message. We're partners on the mission. A very small scale because there's hundreds of thousands of boxes going out throughout the world. We only pack 2 of them, but we are partners in that mission. Our family loves to receive letters from our kid, Donover. Donover is a kid who's grown up quickly. He's 16 years old now, but we sponsor him through Compassion International. And as we have showed this Christian hospitality to Donover and through Compassion International, we are now partners. We are now invested in that mission as a family. When we give to the Great Commission Fund through the Christian and Missionary Alliances, or we support missionaries individually like our church supports Mark and Lauren Reyes, we become invested in the success of their mission. So the Reyes are now in Paraguay. They're setting up, settling into their new culture. They're making connections with new neighbors. They're getting their family, they're getting their kids regulated in their new school, and they're also celebrating the arrival of their new baby Eli. Imagine how tough it is to have a kid when you're a missionary, to have a kid born while you're a missionary in another country. That's what they're dealing with. But they're also looking forward to new opportunities there in Paraguay that God can use them to help spread the mission. And since we support them and we show hospitality to the Reyes family when they're here, we as LifePointe Church are invested. Their success is now our success. The gospel being shared successfully there is now our mission too. So John encourages Gaius, and at the same time, he gives us a great example of what Christian hospitality looks like. He also gives us some of the benefits. It puts into practice our faithfulness to God. It pleases God, and it helps us partner in God's kingdom-inspired mission with other believers. But now that you know John, and we've studied his writings for a few weeks now, you'll know that there is a warning coming. We get to that warning, and it's more of what not to do, in this case, starting in verse 9. Verse 9 says, I wrote to the church about this, but Diotrephes, who loves to be the leader, refuses to have anything to do with us. When I come, I will report some of the things he is doing and the evil accusations he is making against us. Not only does he refuse to welcome the traveling teachers, he also tells others not to help them. And when they do help, he puts them out of the church. Here is John's encouragement for us. Practice Christian hospitality. Take care of other followers of Jesus. Join in the mission and reap the benefits from that. But here's John's warning. Don't be like Diotrephes. Don't be power hungry, slanderous, defiant, closed off, guarded, defensive, and threatening. When John says in verse 9 that he loves to be the leader, Diotrephes loves to be the leader, there's an implication behind these words that there is a lack of humility present. Diotrephes loves to be the leader for the wrong reasons. He is combative towards John. He refuses to have anything to do with him and the followers of Jesus that are part of John's network. He goes so far as to turn other people against them, making evil and untrue accusations against them. As if all this isn't enough, Diotrephes also uses fear and intimidation to get his way. Not only does he discourage people who are under his leadership influence to not receive the traveling teachers that John sent to them, he kicks them out of his church if they do. We can read that and draw our own conclusions and even have our own emotional reaction to Diotrephes and other leaders like him. Maybe you read these verses and you feel anger toward him. Maybe it stirs feelings about another leader who may have treated you as harshly as Diotrephes treats the people in his church. When I read this, I feel sad for him. I just feel plain sad for Diotrephes. Some of the highlights of my pastoral row this year have been meeting fellow Jesus followers who are just passing through and who came to service here at LifePointe when they're just passing through or when they're here in Louisville on a temporary basis. There have been so many people who have encouraged me, and hopefully they feel encouraged by me and by being here too. I think of Julie, who was here for a couple months from Seattle. Her last Sunday with us was Easter Sunday, and her last words of encouragement as we walked out to the parking lot together served as fuel for the fire for me. She encouraged me in such a deep way to stay on mission and to keep going. I think of the older gentleman, I think his name was Dale, but it's been several months. My memory is not great. But he was in Louisville for the funeral of his sister. And the funeral was right here, just 2 doors down at Ratterman Funeral Home. And he came to a church service the morning before the afternoon of her funeral visitation. And we had a great conversation standing in the lobby. And he encouraged me because he's also a church leader himself. And I hope that you've experienced this encouragement from someone who is wiser and more experienced than you at what you're trying to do. It always hits different. And then there was a couple from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who were also church leaders. And we had a great conversation. We talked in the lobby for about 45 minutes after church one day. A conversation filled with encouragement, filled with Christian fellowship and hospitality. There have even been a few CNMA missionaries who stopped by, ones who are back home temporarily, planning their next stage of the mission that we got to encourage, and they encouraged us by being here. Last Sunday, I don't know if many of you know this, we had a couple from Canada here, of all the random places. They've flown in to Atlanta to pick up a car that they were going to take to their daughter who lived in Connecticut, and of all places, they decided to stop here on a Sunday morning for a church service with us. And I got to talk with them, encourage them a bit. They encouraged me. I got to pray with them. And I encouraged them about the adventure they're on. I called it an adventure. They're on a cross-country adventure. How cool is that? In just the last few months, my family and this church has been privileged to get to know Caleb and Ellie. They're not here today because they're visiting their family. They're from Mississippi. But they and a few others have been to this church several times because they're here in Louisville with the organization YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And they are training here for their upcoming missionary work in South America. And when we met them several months ago after a service, and they told us that they were with YWAM, I admittedly completely geeked out. Probably made a fool of myself, like I do a lot. But because in the past few years, I've been slightly obsessed with the organization YWAM. Denise can vouch for that. She hears me talk about the great work that they do and how I just want to be more involved in that. They do some really cool stuff as they equip and train young people to take the mission of God wherever God is leading them. They give them the supplies, they give them the tools to do so. They send these kids to some crazy places. And Caleb and Ellie are going for 2 months, temporary short-term mission trip to a place that does not have gospel access right now. And I think that is so cool. And that's why I feel sad for Diotrephes that he didn't allow himself to receive this kind of encouragement and that he didn't allow himself to partner with the overall kingdom mission. When he and other people like him are guarded and closed off to fellow Jesus followers, they miss the encouragement, they miss the benefits that this fellowship brings. So I want to encourage you, and I want to encourage this church, do not miss that. Don't miss these opportunities. Don't miss the benefits. Don't miss the encouragement that comes from them. Don't miss taking part in things that please God. John tells us in this writing, in 3 John, this pleases God. Starting back with verse 11, dear friend, don't let this bad example influence you. Follow only what is good. Remember that those who do good, that they are God's children, and those who do evil prove they do not know God. But how do we do that? How do we practice Christian hospitality and live out the good like God challenges us to do? How do we show others that we are children of God? How do we do that in today's culture? A culture that is vastly different than the one John was writing to. And for a lot of us in this room, the culture today is vastly different than the one we grew up in just a few decades ago. Things have changed very quickly, and I would argue, and a lot of you would argue, not for the better. It seems like nostalgia for the decades of the 80s and the 90s are at an all-time high. And I fully admit I would love to go back to the way things were then when I was growing up in the 80s and my formative years in the 90s. Let me give you 2 examples of things that happened then that most likely won't happen today. The first happened in the 80s. When I say the name David Reagan to you, does that ring a bell? David Reagan is a pastor and an educator, a speaker, an author, and he's also the founder of nonprofit mission called Lamb and Lion Ministries. He's written many books about biblical prophecy. He's spoken to millions of people all over the world on prophecy. He's a pretty big deal. And for 1 week at the end of the 80s, he was the keynote speaker for a conference on end-time prophecies held at the church that I grew up in, Portland Avenue Church of Christ, right here in the Portland neighborhood of Louisville. Even better than that, my family hosted him and his wife for dinner at our house one of those nights that week. Now, I very seriously doubt that when someone like John Maxwell or Christine Caine or Tim Tebow go to speak at a conference today, I doubt that they stay for the week at the house of the church's pastor like David Reagan did in the 80s. And I doubt that in between speaking gigs that churches are looking for volunteers to host Tim Tebow and his wife for dinner. That's just not the way we do things now. I'm pretty sure that today, included in the conference fees, are the expenses for speakers like Christine Caine and Tim Tebow to stay in a hotel for the night and to eat at the restaurant of their choosing. But that's not how we rolled in the 1980s. If you were alive in the 80s, you know that. The budget was tighter then. Security was much more lax, and people were more trusting, and people were more worthy of being trusted. You could open your house to people you didn't know. You could go into the house of people you didn't know and trust that that situation would usually end well. Christian hospitality was shown in different, more traditional ways then. Second example, in the 90s, I attended Portland Christian High School. And believe it or not, if you've heard me sing, or you've had the displeasure to listen to me while I'm worshiping God, I was in the high school choir. A cappella, of course, because all good Church of Christ members know from the 90s, we know that musical instruments are the handiwork of the devil. We were an a cappella choir. It made me even more dangerous, but our school and the network of Church of Christ that we belong to were closely connected to several churches in the state of Louisiana. So every 2 to 3 years, our high school choir would go on what we called a choir tour, where we would go to Louisiana and sing for these churches and lead them in worship. It was a way to network and raise funds for our school. It also happened to be some of the best and most fun memories that I have. But in the 90s, we were rolling on a budget, so we didn't have money for luxuries like hotel rooms or even meals in restaurants. So every night of choir tour ended with a potluck dinner hosted by the church where we ate, and then we would stay in the house of whatever random member of the church was chosen for us. And a lot of those were good, and some of them were weird. But like I said, these are some of the best memories I have from my teenage years. But I absolutely cannot imagine as a parent sending our 16-year-old son, or God forbid, our 16-year-old daughter, to a different state to stay in the home of someone who we haven't met and who they haven't met either. I cannot imagine doing that today. To the best of my knowledge, no worst-case scenarios happen, as 55 of my closest friends stayed in the homes of complete strangers every single night of choir tour. On the contrary, great things happen. One of my best friends, who's named Tim Carter, now lives right outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with his wife, Lainey, who we met on choir tour 1996. Lucky for Tim and lucky for Lainey, we stayed in Lainey's parents' house when we took our tour to Denham Springs, Louisiana. But even though things worked out the best for them, that style of hospitality just isn't part of our culture today. I wish it could be, but there are so many reasons why it cannot be like that today. So what can we do? As a church, what can we do? As individuals, what can we do to show and practice the hospitality that John tells us to? Number one, I think it starts with an attitude of Christian hospitality. Christian hospitality isn't something that we just show at church for guest teachers or people who are traveling through. We all need to have an attitude of hospitality toward new people every single time we gather as a group of believers. We need to have a mindset of hospitality away from the church also. So evaluate what resources you have, what gifts you've been blessed with by God, and then use them for Christian hospitality. One thing that prompted Denise and I to become foster parents was that we had a 4-bedroom house for just us and our 2 dogs at the time. We had the space to use it to bless other people and to be hospitable in the name of God. And that prompted us. How does God want you to use what you have? Here at church, use the style that fits you best to be hospitable. The easiest way that works for me is when I meet someone new here at church, I simply say, "Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm glad you're here today. What brought you to LifePointe?" This opens up so many doors, starts so many great conversations, and it is a way to show Christian hospitality. This opens doors to encourage people, pray for and with people, remind people that God loves them. It opens the door for all kinds of positive interactions. This engagement also shows that when people have the courage to come to a church that is new to them, they actually expect to be shown hospitality. They expect to be greeted. They expect to be made to feel welcome. In all of my years attending here at LifePointe Church, I have yet to have someone get mad at me when I ask them the question, engage them, and say, "Welcome to LifePointe. What brought you here today?" Not one person has gotten mad at that. So ask yourself if we can collectively be better at hospitality. And if that answer is yes, what can you do to help? Number 2, it starts with an environment of Christian hospitality. From the beginning of its existence, LifePointe has been a place where it is comfortable for people who are either outside of the faith or have some kind of distance in their faith in God to come here and hear the gospel, either for the first time or to reset or to be reassured. That's what we're all about. We have been extremely intentional in creating a welcoming, non-threatening environment for outsiders. That's awesome. We need to double down on that. We need to keep doing that. It's something that we should take pride in. I hope you take pride in that. I think we must also be just as intentional about connecting people who have an established faith already, an established faith background, and a relationship with God. If we're honest, it doesn't seem like we've been doing very good at that. This will take an all hands and an all minds approach. It will take evaluating everything that we do and how we do it. We need to make everything about our church the most welcoming and the most hospitable that it can be. Everything from the parking lot to the lobby to our restrooms to the kids ministry that we need to get restarted ASAP because we got a bunch of kids here now. I challenge you to look around. Think about it. Pray about it. Talk to me about it. Talk to Andy about it. As God prompts us and God leads us, and you look around and you pray, let's talk about it. Let's commit to making the environment here one that is hospitable and known for its hospitality. How cool would it be if you talk to people in the community and they say, "Oh, you go to LifePointe Church? You are so hospitable." That's awesome that we have that reputation. The third thing is we need a collective commitment to Christian hospitality. The kind of hospitality that John wrote about in John 3 is the obligation of every single Jesus follower. Don't miss that. It isn't just one person greeting at the front door or the person setting up the food in the cafe. It isn't just on the pastor or whatever leader is appointed the director of hospitality. This is our collective responsibility when we gather, and we all need to take that seriously, and I encourage you to do so. I want to end today right where I started, back at July 24th, 2024, one of the most important nights of Christian hospitality that I've ever been shown. One reason it became all the more important because less than 3 months after that, Miss Sharon Mangum passed away. And I hate to be a buzzkill, but it has to be noted that she spent some of her last healthy moments displaying to us the best hospitality that we have ever been shown. And I can't walk away from that and be the same. It was life-giving, it was life-changing, and now that Denise and I have received that, we aim to give that away. We want to make others feel as important, as valued, and as loved as Miss Sharon Mangum made us feel through her Christian hospitality, and Mr. Ed Singer. The lesson that they taught us that night, even though she is now passed into heaven, those lessons are going to live forever. As long as we're here, we're going to be doing that because she showed us the way to do it. And I am so happy because, like I said, we had every excuse in the world not to go to that dinner and not to take an entire night to do so. Driving to Lexington, driving back, leaving our kids in the care of someone else, and taking the time to intentionally do that, life-changing. So I encourage you to fully embrace what John teaches us in 3 John. There are any number of practical ways this can be done. I'm just going to throw out a few. You can grab some carry-out food and meet someone else here, meet somebody new here on a Wednesday night when the church doors are already open for a women's group, or a Friday night when the doors are already open for our recovery life care group. Sit in the conference room and have a meal with the new person, or somebody who's been here forever that you just want to connect with. Host a game night at your house, or host a game night here at church. We'll get together and play some board games, eat some food. But any number of practical ways we can get together and practice Christian hospitality and bring other people in when we do so is going to be awesome. Use your gifts and your strengths in the ways that God has made you and God sees fit. Christian hospitality starts with us right here in this room, and it flows out to the rest of the community. And just like when we love each other well, like John 13 says, when we practice hospitality well, people outside of the church are going to notice, and they will want to receive that too. I want to pray over all of us today as I end. Lord, I'm so thankful for 3 John and your instructions that you gave, that you modeled for John, and that he took the time to write down, that he challenged Gaius and his church with, and thanked Gaius and his church for their hospitality that they showed to the people that he sent out, just like Jesus had sent him out before, just like you had sent him out before, Jesus. I want to thank you for all that. How cool is it that we get to reap the benefits of that we get to read this, the shortest book in the Bible, but one that is so powerful, and one that if we do this and we practice it right, and it's life-changing. And it not only changes us, it changes others, and it gives life. It supplies life. How amazing is that? So thank you for that, Lord. Thank you for those reminders. And thank you for your words. Thank you for sending John. I want to challenge you now to pray about ways that God is leading you and God is prompting you to show Christian hospitality in ways that you haven't done before. If you're great at that, awesome. Keep doing it. Keep showing others. And stay open to God and his prompting and his leading if he wants you to do something different. If this is something that's completely off your radar, maybe you're caught up in the hassle of everyday life. Maybe you got 8,000 kids like we do, and there's always something going on, always an appointment to go to, always somewhere to be. Ask God, ask yourself, ask your spouse, ask your kids how you can incorporate people into that. How you can work Christian hospitality into your life. How you can change your mindset. How you can change your attitude about it. Take a minute and do that. Think about how we can make LifePointe Church a more hospitable place. Think about how we can make the environment more hospitable. Christian hospitality. biblical hospitality. Commit that to prayer. Commit that to thought. And don't let it go. If God's giving you something, let's talk about it. Pray about it, water it, let it grow. Lord, I want to thank you for 3rd John. I want to thank you for each and every single person in this room. I want to thank you that about half the people in this room stepped up for the kids at Brooklawn on Tuesday. It's amazing. That's life-giving. That's life-changing. That is biblical and Christian encouragement and hospitality. Show us ways and give us ways, Lord, to keep doing that, to reach out to people that we need to be hospitable with people that we need to. We know you will, Lord. I pray that we see the ways that you give us. Lord, thank you so much for our friends, the Manghams. I'm thankful that Miss Sharon and Ed Sr. took time out of their lives to show us what Christian hospitality is all about. They challenged us in ways that we had never been challenged before, just by being who they are and who you made them to be. And we're going to take that and give it away, and we thank you for that lesson. Lord, thank you for being with us here today. Thank you for hearing our prayers as we end our time together, as we worship you again. I just pray that you find it pleasing, and we're just so thankful to be here. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
The splendor of a king, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light. Darkness tries to hide, trembles at his voice, trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? Oh, we'll see how great is our God. You are the name above all names, and you are worthy of all praise. And my heart will sing, how great is our God. Yeah, how great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. Oh, we'll see how great is our God.
All right, as we continue on with our worship, this morning through our tithes and our offerings here at LifePointe Church. There's a few different ways that you can give. If you choose to do so, you can give here in person. On your way out the double doors, to the left is a table just like this one with a basket and some envelopes. You can give that way. You can go to our website. There's an online giving button you can click. It takes you to a safe and secure place where you can give. You can use our Church Center app. There's a variety of different ways that you can give. But we're just thankful for those that are giving, just giving a portion of what God's blessed you with so that we can continue as a church to meet needs both inside and outside our walls and to serve and to do the things that we're called to do. And so we're just thankful for that. If you have questions about that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Actually, Daniel would be more than happy to answer any questions about that. Just kidding. So either two of us will be happy to answer those questions. Also, if this is your first time here, first time watching online, thank you so much for being with us today. If you want to get a little more connected to our text alert system, you can text the word connect to the number 502-236-9446. It'll send you a link where you can fill out a digital connection card. Again, I always say this when we get to this time of the year, it's kind of important because I know we've got some snow coming potentially in the next couple of days. We're going to have that for the next 2 or 3 months probably, where it's just going to be, we'll get, there'll be snow, but then there won't be snow. And then when we're going to have a little bit of snow, there'll be a ton of snow. So just so that we can keep you all updated on whether or not we'll be meeting. Just get connected with that. If you have questions also about that, let me know. If you have any issues or difficulties with that, I'd be more than happy to help you out with that. Since I was out of town last week, just got in last night, I don't know where we're at. Are we this Wednesday or next Wednesday? This Wednesday, Women's Bible Study. See Denise, you have questions about that, definitely come out and hang out. Pray together, study the Word together. It's a great time. If you have questions, again, see Denise. And as Daniel said, if there's things that you want to do to get together and hang out, we are all about it. If you have ideas, things like that, to continue to build community and be hospitable, all those great things, we would love to hear because, we are the church. And so we need to be talking about those things. So definitely touch base with us if you have some ideas or things you'd love to do. We have a beautiful space that needs to be used. So I think that's really it. Again, it's good seeing all of you all. Always shout out to the team for covering while I'm out. I know whether I'm here or not here, things go like clockwork because, again, this is the church. And so we thank you all for being a part of it. Shout out to Daniel and his crew with the Christmas swag today. It's impressive. I like the Dwight shirt the best. So if it's Shark Week, they're in Sharks. If it's first, coming up on December, it's not even December yet, but it is after Thanksgiving, so shout out. So I appreciate that respect. So again, thank you all so much for being here. We love you guys. Thank you for being a part of LifePointe Church. Thank you again, as Daniel said several times, to those that served this past week at Bellwood and Brooklawn. We greatly appreciate that. And I know the kids, it means the world to them. So love you guys. If you need anything throughout the week, hit us up. If not, we will see you either Wednesday night or on Sunday.
All right, thanks, Andy. Church, if you guys want to stand with us, we're going to sing as we close. Like always, we jump back to our opening song, Forever. Sing, Give Thanks to the Lord. Here we go.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Give thanks to the Lord our God.